It's getting sickening that we always talk about the politicizing and narratives. I mentioned Obama earlier as someone who also employed ICE to do the exact same thing. The numbers of people being deported very similar. That should be the bottom line of things. I don't bring up Obama to serve as a right wing argument or sort of that same played out argument. I bring up Obama because he used ICE, and I agree with what he was doing. Because you have to just look at the numbers. And that's what it all boils down to. When Obama took office, this is when Obama took office, 2008.
Yeah.
Look how illegal the number of unauthorized immigrants in the US. We're looking at this from Pew Research.
It went up big.
It was like steadily, it was a problem. Obama's like, we have to address this.
Yeah.
And there were no protests in the streets. There's no people fighting ICE. There's no people. And if one wanted to like relive that time and dissect one of Obama's ICE operations, you could paint it as if Obama was Hitler. You could paint it as if Obama is targeting these people. You could paint it because when you see the real details of what happened also under Obama's administration, this is what was, they were a law enforcement entity doing their job. The idea is, what are you fighting against? I bring up Obama just because I also, it was a problem. You look at this. So then it started to decline. But when Biden took office right here, it spiked.
Yeah, skyrocketed up.
This incline here, the increase of 3.5 million in just those 2 years, the biggest in record history. This is the framework for what America needs to see for why ICE is out there. You may agree or disagree with how their tactics are. And even if you disagree, you, again, take that to Congress, whatever. But this is the issue.
Yeah.
Bottom line, if immigrant communities, even amongst my Twin Cities friends, communities, if there's some of them are legal, this hits home too, because the Hmong community is a part of a big diaspora of people coming over during post-Vietnam War. And so, yeah, we have an eclectic mix of people born here, first generation, second generation, probably have an eclectic mix of people who are permanent residents versus actual citizens, and in a mix of people maybe aren't here legally and whatever. But this is our Hmong community, the splattering of it. But at the end of the day, if you are illegal and you're found, I'm not going to be happy that you're found, of course, but it says that sucks. But don't fight back. Like, we have to figure out a way to do this legally then.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Now, are they targeting those people? I don't feel like that's the case.
Yeah.
But if they find you, then they're going to take you in too. Like, that's the way it boils down.
Yeah.
But really, what's being targeted is not necessarily people or races or profiling. They're targeting that incline. They're targeting the state of affairs in America of this huge influx of new people groups from all over these different places that aren't legally here. And that has its rippling ramifications across communities, and it affects the communities most who are in the lower class community, like in terms of the living conditions, the real people living in the neighborhoods. So this has nothing to do about this higher philosophy of race, of a hate crime. This has to just do with the real brass tacks numbers here. That incline's ridiculous. But here's the next layer of it. When I started looking at this incline, you just think, was Biden just
sleep at the wheel?
Sleep at the wheel. And then no one just looked at this and they turned around and they're like, oh man, we weren't paying attention to the border immigration, and now look, it's skyrocketed. Oh dang. But it's a different game. The calculus changes if you think that this is just, a byproduct of someone being behind the wheel, to this is by a designed effort by a previous administration, so that everything we're looking at in Trump's administration, all his moves are just the counter to whatever that was. So we're not addressing real societal issues. We're just caught up in their battle. We're just caught up in their political mess. And so when I was digging into that 14 million at the end of 2023, 14 million unauthorized immigrants in the US, the label unauthorized immigrants, though, those 14 million, captures a complex array of statuses. And this is where it gets very technical and very when you see some of the nuances of the technicality of this is where you see the political warfare being back and forth. This is where you say this is not a this isn't just somebody behind the wheel and then a lot of people just hop the border.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that too. Complex array of statuses. What does that mean by statuses? This increase was due to unauthorized immigrants with some protection from deportation. What that means is that these unauthorized immigrants, I equated that with illegal immigrants who aren't here, who need to be deported because they're illegal. It does capture that, but unauthorized immigrants could also mean people who are here. They're not legally supposed to be here, but the president, for this instance, paroled them, and we'll dive into what that means. Like paroled them to allow them to be here, and now they have a protection from being deported, the TPS protection, which means like anyone from these designated countries,
like Haitians,
Haiti. Like Haiti, Venezuela. Those protections are used on a case-by-case basis for specific reasons. But when you see that in the Biden administration, parole and TPS use protections through the roof increased.
Yeah. So he just did like a broad paint brush.
What it means is that like it wasn't because, hey, no one's looking, let's all jump over. It means these are executive tools of the executive branch where you can say, I'm going to allow, we have our legal operation at play, but I'm going to allow special exceptions to certain situations, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Back in 2007, where we're looking at this number here, this big spike here that Obama addressed, there were about 12 million unauthorized immigrants, and 11.7 of them didn't have the protection status, or that means they were here illegally, somehow they got here. Only a small percentage of them, like 500,000, were designated as, well, they're here and they have a protection status. And that protection status is usually because their home country is at war or something. And so if you find someone and they're actually from that, their nationality is from that country, they get a special card that says, oh, I'm exempt from, until this a certain date though. It's not forever. Until
which is that temporary protective status.
Temporary. So then in 2023, like more than almost half had some form of protection from deportation. Essentially what it boils down to is parole and TPS are two executive functions. You parole, I discovered parole because that's how the Hmong people first came here. Because of the situation, they were abandoned in Vietnam. And then because they were first facing persecution, the executive power used the power of paroling, meaning giving them a special status to allow them to come in, even though we don't have their status yet, because the situation demands it. Hmong people first came in waves through that parole program. It wasn't until much later other things where the majority of them came over, but it's an executive thing. So parole use, it's a tool that skyrocketed under Biden. How so? The average preceding administration, meaning Trump's administration, Barack Obama's, all the preceding administrations, on a year basis, they used, or it was used for about 200,000 to 300,000 people to come in every year. That's just the average. So if you look at all the presidents of the past, usually about 200, 300,000 are paroled under special circumstances, immigrants. Yeah. And under Biden, it was 700,000. He increased that parole use just through the roof. Throughout his whole campaign from 2021 to 2025, about 2.8 million unauthorized immigrants were given parole. So meaning they don't have a status of permanent resident. They don't have a temporary visa status. They don't have citizenship status.
They just got to get out of here free
or
jail
get
card.
in for free card. They got to get in for free card.
And so they can't, and there's no consequences of being here as long as you have that card.
We allowed you to come in.
Can't do anything about it.
That's what TPS is, though.
Oh.
TPS doesn't focus on the situation of the people. They focus on geopolitical things. They look at the country. If your nationality is from like Somalia, at one point Somalia was under had that TPS. So if your nationality is Somalia and maybe you're not legally here, you don't have your documentation, well, it's okay. Your TPS will allow at least for you to not have to be deported until a certain date.
That's what Trump was talking about when he said he was going to remove the protection of TPS on the Somalian people. Then, right?
Yeah.
After all the, the crimes and
people will view that as targeting the Somali community, but TPSs are supposed to have an expiration date. TPS allows it just so that you don't get deported. Parole allows it so that for this instance, we're going to allow this influx of people to come in, and we don't have a plan for them yet. They don't have a status, but
Yeah.
we'll allow them. Those are
We'll
both
figure it out
executive branch tools.
Yeah.
Under Biden, those tools were hugely maximized. We're going to parole a ton of people, more than ever. So it's not just a mix of people hopping the border. That 14 million spike was a bunch of people hopping the border, and the executive use of paroling so it's not a one-off thing like our Hmong people who fought for the U.S., were abandoned, and now we need to come over. It's not a one-off thing. It's just skyrocketing. And to allow them to stay, we'll give them TPS too, give them protection statuses. Let's maximize that use too. So we looked at that too. TPS use expansion under Biden. Under his campaign, the average preceding base levels, meaning the number of immigrants or people affected, on average, 400,000. Under Biden, it increased to 1.3 million.
Dang.
So he's increasing their ability to stay.
Yeah.
But you can go into intent. You can go into the theories of why would he. Maybe it's just this one-off scenario, coincidence that we were living in just such a crazy time that it made sense to do. If you take it on a case by case and you walk down the list, every country or people group he paroled, it actually made sense. Whatever, you can do that. That's not what this is about. It's essentially about he did use that, and our country is so recomposed in new ways. And once TPS expires, that's the problem. It's not like people will self-report, oh, my TPS is expired, I'm not supposed to be here. And it's not like anyone's going to go out and look for them either. Mm-hmm. That's why you have people here, maybe 30 years plus, who've lived here because their TPS expired a long time ago, and they're just still here because no one's going to look for them.
Yeah.
So not only did we have this huge influx of people, they were given TPS, but even when it expires, nothing happens.
Yeah.
That's the situation we're living in right now. They're here. There's no status. We let a bunch of people into the house. There's no sort of rhyme or reason for their plans, what's going on. I'm not going to talk about intention. I'm not going to talk about why is this one wanting to do that or the voter block type argument. It's just that's the situation that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Now, how they get triggered is like a traffic stop. If your TPS expired and then, you were speeding, that's how you get found.
Yeah.
Or random stops at traffic to find people like that. And that's why some people are found. And so today, if ICE finds you and it's just your friendly neighborhood businesswoman who's worked here for 30 years, but you're here illegally, if they find you, they're still going to take, because that's how they find people. The targeting aspect is the criminals and all that stuff.
What about having TPS status, but does that give you authorization to work in the US?
I believe so.
Like similar, like a green card does,
I believe so.
So you can just, it's like a free get out of jail card that basically allows you to just live as if you're a citizen for a temporary period amount of time. But when it expires, then I guess I would imagine you wouldn't be able to find work if it expires too as well then, right? Because then it's kind of like every workplace that you apply for, you have to check the box, are you a U.S. citizen and can you legally work in the U.S.? There's always some kind of checkbox in the application process. That creates a challenge in itself for all of those 1.3 million people.
If they can't work.
Because once it expires, right, you got 1.3 million people now living here who
can't legally work.
Can't legally work. How do you make a living, to take care of your children, to have a house over your head, to pay the bills,
So and the government comes in and pays and
takes care of them, so that's another cynical approach. The government will take care of you, etc. And then that's why we have these government programs that get fraud and SNAP and all these fraud. Okay, that's one side of it. The other side of it, the cynical side, is very cynical. Is the government don't care. Like if you were the one trying to organize this, what happens when they're done? They can't work. They'll figure it out, whatever. Yeah. Because what can they do?
Yeah.
Vote. That's what it boils down to. Yeah. Your TPS might expire, and we protected you for a certain amount of time. If it expires, you can't work. But as long as you're here, you make ends meet. You just deal with it. Just be here, but you can vote. And again, I'm not going to push that conspiracy on that. But what we're factually facing is that 14 million, a peaked incline of unauthorized immigrants. It's changed the fabric of our society. It's also impacted materially us here at home in terms of what it means to live with more people, the expenses, inflation. That's a reality. The other reality is Biden actually exercised these powers to a ridiculous extent or to an unprecedented extent. You can go look for the reasons why. You can say that. I don't care. It happened.